Hello and welcome back to my channel TechSage Academy. In our previous episodes of learning Python, we have learned about basics, inputs and outputs, print statements. We have learned about operators, logical operators, relational operators, assignment operators, arithmetical operators. We have learned about operators. Now in this third episode of learning Python, we are going to learn about selection statements, which comes under flow of control. Now, what is flow of control? Flow of control determines the programmer's control on sequence of execution of statements and block of statements in a program. That means it is under the control of the programmer which statements the programmer wants to execute or which blocks of statements the programmer wants to execute or skip. So let's learn about flow of control. Under flow of control, there are three components. These three components of flow of control are sequence, selection or conditional statements, and iteration. Sequence determines the order in which the instructions written in a program are going to be executed. According to sequence, the instructions are executed in the order in which they are written. That means the first instruction of the program will be the first one to execute. The second instruction in the program will be the second one to execute. The third instruction in the program will be the third one to execute. And the fourth instruction in the program will be the fourth one to execute. And this process continues. So basically, every program executes in the sequence. That means the instructions are executed in the sequence in which they are written. Now, given in the example below, there are four statements in our program. The first statement is import math library. So when we run the program, the first statement that executes will import the math library into the program. The second statement is we are assigning a value to x, that is 10. We are assigning 10 to x. Then in the third statement, we are assigning 2 to y. In the fourth statement, we are calculating the power of x raised to the power 2. Using the power function of the math library, we are calculating the power of x raised to the power 2. So whatever the result is generated will be assigned to z. And in the fifth statement, we are printing the result. X is raised to the power 2. The result will be printed. So they will execute in the same order in which they are written. Next is selection. In selection, there are conditional statements which determines which block of codes to execute. If a specific condition that we are giving in a program is true, then the statement or block of statements written under that if condition will be executed. There are four ways in which we can specify conditional statements in Python. The first one is simple if condition. The second one is if and else blocks. The third one is the if elif ladder, and the last one is nested if conditions. Iteration are also called loops or looping statements. Now, many a times it happens that we need to repeat certain set of instructions in our program for a number of times. So when we want to repeat some set of instructions a number of times, we put those instructions inside a loop. It will become very cumbersome if we write those instructions separately for a number of times. Let's say I have to print numbers from 1 to 100. So if I use print statement to display 1 to 100, I have to write 100 statement, and in every print statement I have to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead, I can use a loop to generate a series of 1 to 100 without writing the print statements 100 times. So whenever we have some task which is repeating in nature, that task can be put under the loops, and the iterative statements repeat that tasks for a number of times or until and unless a condition is satisfied. There are two types of loops present in Python programming language. One is for loop and another is while loop. In this particular episode, we are going to focus on selection statements or conditional statements. That means the if conditions and the variations of if conditions. So let's now start exploring the variations of if conditions that can be given in our Python programs. First of all, single if condition. In single if condition, the program checks for only a single condition. If the condition is true, the statements which we put inside the block of if condition will execute. But if the condition is false, the if condition is skipped and the program continues. The statements which are written inside the if conditions are not executed. Let's try to understand this with the help of a program. Now let's write a program using simple if statement to check whether a variable x is greater than another variable y or not. So let's start writing x is equal to int input, enter value in x, y is equal to int input, enter value in y. Now let's write the if condition. If x is greater than y, then print value of x is greater than y. Now, how does this program works? First of all, we are going to enter value in x, an integer value, and an integer value in y. Next statement is the condition. The condition checks whether the value that we have entered in x is greater than y or not. If the value that we have entered in x is greater than y, then it returns true. Otherwise, it will return false. And if the condition is true, we will enter inside the if block and the print statement execute. Now, these colons signify the beginning of a block. And you can see that this print statement is little bit indented towards inside of if block. It basically leaves a single tab space. So a single tab space is left here on the left hand side of print statement. So it means that this print statement belongs to this if block and will execute only and only if this condition is true. Otherwise it will not execute. Now outside this if block, I'm going to write another statement, print the program continues. Now this print statement is outside the block of if. You can see the indentation level, it falls under the same indentation level of if condition. So it is outside the block of if. Once the if block is over, this statement will execute. So let's run the program. I'll enter a value in x, 10, the value in y, 5. Now here value of x is greater than value of y. So the condition is checked, the condition becomes true, we enter inside the if block and the statement written in the if block will execute. You can see value of x, 10 is greater than value of y. The statement gets printed. And then when the block of if gets over, our rest of the program continues. This is how simple if works. Let me run this program again. What if value of x is lesser than value of y. Now here in this case, our program is not handling this situation. So in our next category of selection statements, we are going to handle this situation where the condition becomes false. So the next selection statement is if else condition. Now if else condition works in this way that if the condition given in if block is true, the statements written inside the if block executes. If the condition written in the if block is false, then the control of the program will jump to the else block and statements written inside the else block will execute. Let's try to understand this programmatically. I'll modify this program now and write else block. Print value of y is greater than x. So now we have added an else block to our if condition. So here is the if condition. If this condition is true, if x is greater than y, then print statement will execute. That is x is greater than y. If this condition is false, the control of our program will jump to this else part and the statement written in this else part will execute. So let's run this program. X 10 and y 15, and you can see the value of y 15 is greater than x. The statement written in the else part executes here. What will happen if both of the values are equal? So we can handle this situation in our next category of the selection statements. Next selection statement is if elif ladder. In if elif ladder, we can handle multiple conditions in a program. We'll use if elif ladder. Let's learn programmatically how it can be implemented or used. So like I said, what if the value entered in x and value entered in y are equal? So I'm going to use if elif block. Elif stands for else if, and it checks for multiple conditions. If the conditional statement in the if condition is false, then the control of the program will jump to the next elif block and the condition is checked. If that condition is true, the statement written in that elif block, that means second elif block, will execute. But if that condition is also false, then the control of the program will jump over to the next elif block. And this process continues until unless all the elif blocks are exhausted. So let's see. First of all, we'll make this program. If elif y is greater than x, then value of y is greater than x will execute. Else print value of x and y are equal. Here we are checking two conditions. The first condition is if x is greater than y. If x is greater than y, then the statement written in the first if block gets executed, that is x is greater than y. If that condition is false, then the control of the program will jump over to this elif block and the condition written in this elif block is checked. Remember, elif stands for else if. The condition is checked. y is greater than x. Now if value of y is greater than x, then the statement written in this elif block will execute because this condition becomes true. But when we enter equal values in x and y, then neither x is greater than y nor y is greater than x. So both the condition becomes false and the control of the program will jump over to the else part and the statement written under the else part will execute. So let's run this program and see. So 10, 5, value of x is greater than y. I'll run it again. 10, 15, value of y 15 is greater than x 10. I'll run it again. And now I'm going to enter 10, 10. And here the else part executes. Value of x and y are equal because both the conditions were false. Let's see one more example in if-elif block. Here in this program, what I'm going to do, I'm going to enter the value of day in the form of a number. Enter a day number. Now my program will check if the value of day is 1, then Monday gets printed. If the value of day is 2, then Tuesday, 3, Wednesday, 4, Thursday, 5, Friday, 6, Saturday, and 7, Sunday. So according to the number of day, the word related to that day gets printed. So if day is equal to 1, then print Monday. Elif day is equal to 2, then print Tuesday. Elif day is equal to 3, print Wednesday. Elif day is equal to 4, print Thursday. Elif day is equal to 5, print Friday. Elif day is equal to 6, print Saturday. Elif day is equal to 7, print Sunday. Else print valid day number. So let's run this program and see how it works. The working is simple. If we enter 1 in day, then the first condition becomes true and the block executes and print Monday. If we enter 2, the first condition becomes false. The condition written in elif day is equal to 2 becomes true and this will execute. If we enter 3, the first 2 blocks becomes false. The third block will become true and the statement written in third block executes. And if we enter 4, the first 3 will become false, fourth will become true, statement written inside the fourth block will execute, and so on. If we enter any other number except for 1 to 7, then the control of the program will jump over to else part and this statement will get printed. Enter valid day number. So let me run this program. 1 Monday, I'll run it again. 2 Tuesday, 3 Wednesday, 4 Thursday, 5 Friday, 6 Saturday, 7 Sunday. Enter any other number, for example 8, enter valid day number. So this is how if-elif ladder works. Now let's move on to the next category of selection statements, and that is nested if conditions. In nested if statements, one if block is contained inside another if block. If the outer if condition evaluates to true, then only the program checks next if condition, and if the condition is true, then only it checks next if condition, and this process continues until an if condition evaluates to false or all the if conditions are exhausted. So this is how the nested if conditions are written. Let's do it programmatically. So let's think of a scenario that a school has to give admission to students in class 11th. They are going to check few conditions one by one. The first condition, the mandatory condition, is the candidate must have passed in class 10th. If the student has passed class 10th, then only further conditions has to be checked. So the next condition that the school will check is whether the child is getting greater than 70% or not. Only if the child is getting greater than 70%, then the child will become eligible for admission. If the child becomes eligible for admission, then again the percentage is checked. If it is greater than 80, then only the science stream is going to be allocated. Otherwise, commerce or humanities stream is going to be allocated. So here you can see we have a master if condition. Under that master if condition, we have nested if conditions. So the master condition must evaluates to true so that the nested if conditions should be executed. We need to enter two things. Number one, the percentage. Percentage is equal to, let's enter it in integer. Int input, enter percentage in 10th, and then we need to enter the result. Input, enter result in the form of pass, compartment or failed. So these two things will be entered. And now let's write the nested if block. So first if condition, if result is equal to pass, then only we are going to enter inside the if block. Otherwise there is no point in checking rest of the if condition. I'll display a message, print candidate is passing in 10th. Fine. If the candidate is passing, then only next if condition should be checked, and that is if percentage is greater than 70. If the percentage is greater than 70, again I'll display a message, candidate is eligible for admission. Fine, the candidate is eligible for admission. But now let's check the last condition, which is nested inside the percentage condition. If percentage is greater than 80, then only is the candidate eligible to take admission in science stream. So eligible for science. Now if the percentage is greater than 70 but lesser than 80, then what shall we do? So I'll write an else part for this if condition. Now this else part belongs to this if condition. If this if condition percentage greater than 80 is false, then the program will jump over to this else block. You can see the indentation level. The indentation level of this if and this else are same. So if this condition becomes false, then only we will jump into this else part. So in this else part, I'll print the child is not eligible for science, but the child is eligible for commerce or humanities. Now, what if the percentage is not greater than 70? The result is pass. The candidate is passing the class 10th, but the candidate is not securing more than 70%. So to control this situation, I'll write else part, which is under the same indentation level as this if. So this else belongs to this if condition, percentage greater than 70. That means if percentage greater than 70 condition becomes false, then the control will jump directly to this else block and print percentage is less than 70. Now, what if the result of the student is not passed? The student is in compartment or failed category. I'll just correct the spelling here. Failed category. So to handle this, I'll write else block. Now this else block belongs to the first if condition. Result is equal to pass, and it is at the same indentation level. You can see the indentation, it is at the same level. So print candidate is not passing class 10th. So let's see how our program works. Run this program and check. some, okay, I have given two brackets here. That's why this error. So enter percentage in 10th. So let's say percentage in 10th is 81. That means the science condition is true and the result is pass. So all the conditions are true. So candidate is passing in 10th. The first master condition is true. Candidate is eligible for admission. That means greater than 70% condition is true, and eligible for science. That means the last condition greater than 80% is also true. Let's make them false one by one. Percentage in 10th. Let's say the percentage in 10th is 75. Greater than 70, eligible for admission, but less than 80, not eligible for science, eligible for commerce or humanities. Result is pass. Candidate is passing in 10th. Candidate is eligible for admission, eligible for commerce or humanities. Now let's run it again. Now percentage is 68, which is lesser than 70. Result is pass. That means the admission cannot be given to this child. So candidate is passing in 10th. Percentage is less than 70. Let's run this program again. Let's say percentage is 71. That means if we see the percentage, the child is eligible for admission, but the child has got compartment in one of the subjects. So the admission cannot be given. The child is not eligible for admission at all. So enter candidate is not passing class 10th. So this is how nested if condition works. So I hope you have learned how to use if conditions and the variations of if conditions in your program, and you'll be able to implement in your applications. See you in our next episode, which will be on iterations. Till then, subscribe to this channel, TechSage Academy. Like our video, do write comments and feedbacks. Press that notification bell icon so that whenever I upload a new video, a notification can be sent to you. See you.